Hi, my name is Tom Costa with Acumatica, and today we're going to take a look at the new pivot table feature available in Acumatica 6.0. At the start, when you start looking at pivot tables, you really have to start as well, what data do you want to use the pivot table to analyze? So within Acumatica 6.0, we're going to be able to use our generic inquiries as really being the starting point for our pivot table function. So let's go ahead and go into the generic inquiries, and we'll pull up one of our standard ones that we have, invoiced items. And invoiced items is really a collection of sales data, customer items, quantities, sales numbers, sales rep, things like that. So it's really a great starting point for one of our pivot tables. So once we call it up, we'll click over to View Inquiry. So now we'll be able to take a look at all of the actual data that we'll have available to our pivot table. And then under customization, we're going to say, well, we're going to make this into a pivot table. So very easy to be able to determine what information we want to analyze and then get it basically into a pivot table configuration screen, which is where we're at right now. So when we're here, really the first thing we're going to do is we could hit Add New. And so what data do we want to be able to analyze, and how do we want to analyze it? Well, the first thing is, since it has customer sales, let's go over to our account name field and drag it over to our rows, because that's going to be really the basis for our analysis. But account name, maybe we don't necessarily want it to say account name in the pivot table. We want to make it a little bit easier for our users to be able to really at a glance recognize what they're looking at. So over under properties under caption, let's go ahead and just change that to customer. So now it's going to show customer on the row. So let's also take a look at, well, what did this customer buy? Well, let's go ahead and take a look at our inventory ID. And for that, really, I want to make that a little wider just so that, the entire ID is in the field. So we'll make that 150 characters wide and under width. So next, and the last piece onto the rows would be, well, how many of these did they buy? So we'll move quantity over. So now that we've got the rows defined, the next thing we want to do is, well, what do we actually want to analyze? Actually, the values or the numbers. So we'll use our external amount. And for that, again, we're just going to change the caption under properties to sales. And then we also want to change the format to currency. So we'll just type in a C under format for currency. And we'll do the same for external profit. And we'll change it to gross profit. So again, people will easily be able to see what they're looking at. And we'll make that a currency field as well. So now we have what we want to analyze in there, but we also may want to include some other filters in the pivot table to be able to use while we're looking at our data. So we'll take a look at customer class, and we'll just move that over to the filters quadrant, and we'll do the same for item class, and then also financial period, and then name, which is our sales rep. So once we have that done, we really will, what do we want to call it now? Well, let's call it our sales analysis pivot table. There we go. And we're going to share this. So we could always find our pivot tables just by a quick lookup and actually be able to view it. But I actually want to put this on our sitemap so that it's, it's going to be available to the users just through the normal navigation of the system. So let's go ahead and share this now so that we can, view it from inside the normal navigation of Acumatica. So we'll click on Is Shared, and then we'll say, well, where do we want to share it? So let's go ahead and put it in Accounts Receivable in the Explore section, and we'll go ahead and hit Save. So now once we go over to the Finance module or Suite and Accounts Receivable under Explore, and now we'll pivot table, and there's a couple things that we can do with it. But probably the most powerful feature we have is, as you can see, these are all hyperlinked. So now we can start taking a look at this raw data of what items each customer has bought, how many they've bought, and we can actually start drilling down on this data now to the source document if we wanted to. So here we've drilled down to the line. And we can drill down even further to the actual source document of the query. So again, access to that information is going to be very easy. Even though it's in a pivot table, we still have all of our normal drill down capability. So right now we were able to drill back down to that original invoice from that line we looked at, and here's that $3,408 that we were just looking at. So again, that full drill down capability is inherent within the system, but now we can also do some other things with this data as well. One of the things that we might want to do is maybe we might want to see our sales by our sales rep. So what items or what items this sales rep have been selling, so we can actually move that down to the column, for instance, and now start taking a look at sales by the individual reps that we've had in there. So we can see Steve is really leading the pack with his sales. And again, we could drill down on just Steve's sales if we wanted to as well. So sales reps going to be available to us. And then we can also do some things with, let's say, the financial period as well. But this goes back to 2013. So let's go ahead and just do a quick filter there and just say, well, we really just want to take a look at 2016 sales now. So let's take a look at that. So now we're looking at 2016 sales for Steve Church for which items that he's actually been selling. So again, how many has he sold, what items, which customers of his have been buying. So again, a very easy way to start taking a look at anything that can be analyzed in terms of sales figures or where have our leads been coming in from our CRM system. Any of these can be sources for a pivot table to be able to view the data exactly the way you want, but not in a rigid format. This gives us a lot of flexibility in terms of what items, what customers, what sales reps. We can, again, filter on just a particular sales rep if we wanted to, just to see his sales, or maybe just a particular item class sales and see what's been moving lately in this class of product. So again, a lot of flexibility, and I'm giving you really the power to be able to look at your data the way you want to through this easy to use pivot table function. Thank you for your time today in looking at our new pivot table function for Acumatica 6.0.